Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we're doing something a little different. We're going to talk about some quick problem-solving strategies that you can use when you're taking the GED or HiSET tests. So today we'll go through different strategies, and the first one that I want you to keep in mind is to guess and check. Now, I find this one is particularly useful when you're thinking about math concepts, but it can occasionally be used on the other tests as well. So guess and check means that if you're not sure which of the multiple choice options would work the best, then you can plug the answers in and check to see if they are right. Now, this is particularly helpful if you have something like solving for an equation. Maybe you're working with variables. Those types of activities are very useful. So guessing and checking, it's a quick way to go through the answers that you're given and seeing which one might be the best answer. Another option that you can use, and this goes for many of the tests and many different types of questions, is you can create an image that will help you. So let's say that you're working on the math test. Well, creating an image of perhaps the geometry that's being talked about in the problem, but you can't visualize, can help you to see where the different dimensions go. Creating an image of something happening in a story might help you keep track of the characters and setting. Creating an image of a particular scientific equation or mapping it out may help you to be able to get a better understanding of what that is. So don't be afraid to use your creative side. And don't worry, no one has to see your art, only you. So you can use whatever images make the most sense, but if it helps you to think out the problem, it can be a great strategy. Our third one today is to brainstorm. Now this one I think is particularly helpful when we think about the writing section. You have to write an essay on both tests, and when you take some time to create ideas and to brainstorm and just sketch those ideas down, it makes it so much easier to look at them and organize them in your writing. So use brainstorming when you really need to come up with some more ideas. And also, if you're feeling stuck on something, let's say that in your social studies test, they're asking you about a historical event, and you're just trying to remember some of the information that you might know about that event that may help you to answer the question, use brainstorming, right? Write down a few ideas. A lot of times when we activate our brain and start really engaging it with the thing we're trying to think about and come up with ideas about, we'll come up with even more. So give yourself that advantage, write down a few ideas, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, it's just for you, not for anyone else. Another option is to think logically. So I always tell students when you're picking an answer, especially if it has to do with math, consider first just a general idea of what would make sense here. So for example, let's say that we were doing a problem where it talked about a number of pies and how many slices those pies were cut into, and it wanted to know a total. Well, if you had 3 pies and one of the answers was 2, you know that couldn't be right because there would be more slices than there would be pies. So we want to think logically in that manner, to think about, okay, what would make sense in this situation? If you're feeling overwhelmed by a problem, try to take a step back and maybe rethink it. A lot of times we know some of the situations or the types of things they're asking about because they try to create these problems to reflect real life situations. So again, if you're overwhelmed, just take a step back, think logically. Maybe you'll come up with the way to solve it, or at least you might come up with some narrowed down answers to choose from. Increase your chances of getting it correct. Another thing to look for are patterns. You want to pay attention to if there are any patterns, both in things like literature, right? Do you see some reoccurring themes? Do you see some lines in the poem that are repeated or words that are frequently used? Do you see patterns on graphs and charts on the science or the social studies portion? And do you see patterns in the numbers that you're working with on the math portion? Patterns can really help us to better understand what we're looking at and then figure out the next step and answer. Another option you can do is write out the facts. Now, if you have watched any of our Math Roundtable videos here on YouTube or attended the class, you'll know that we always start off by identifying the important information in a word problem. Word problems often have confusing language or extra information that you don't actually need. And so if you can identify what the facts are and the most important information is, then it'll help you to scoot around the answers that might be there to trick you and to just stick with the information that is known. Now, another option would be to work backwards. So if you're feeling really stuck on something, you might work from the opposite end. So maybe you look at the answers first, and then you work backwards to see which one would match with the original work in the question. This is particularly useful in math, similar to what we talked about before, where you would guess and check. But in this case, if you work backwards, it can help you to, like starting at the end of a maze, right, and finding your way back to the beginning, it can help you to really narrow down what the options are. Now, when worse comes to worse, I always want you to think about trying to simplify things. Sometimes we look at a problem and it looks like this. One skill that I like to use is if I'm feeling really overwhelmed by the answers on the questions, then I like to take a moment just to break them down. Now, with that, I will look at each answer, option A, B, C, and D, and say, okay, what does this one mean? What words do I know or not know? If I'm feeling confused about a vocabulary word, I'll try to look at the rest of the sentence and then take a guess what that word might mean. Even if I'm not sure, it'll at least help me to move forward with that reading rather than feeling stuck on that one part. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed by the information on a chart, I'll really take a moment to look at the different things that are listed there, what information it gives me in the introduction at the top, and look at all the different things that are listed on that chart or points that are marked on the graph. That can help me to organize my brain so that if I'm feeling overwhelmed by all of this stuff in front of me, I can suddenly simplify it down to the stuff that I really need to know so that I'll be able to navigate it better and find my answers. Thanks so much for watching today. I hope that you'll check out our channel and look at all the other videos, and don't forget to subscribe. You can also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and helmsacademy.org.